My name's Dr. David Koffitz with the Learning Council. On behalf of the Learning Council and our CEO, LeiLani Cauthen, we want to welcome you to our 4th annual gathering and National Awards Ceremony. We have just a jam-packed experience lined up for you the next day and a half. There are some phenomenal educators that you are going to get to hear from both on this stage as well as in the breakouts later this afternoon. We've got some school districts to present awards to this evening at a wonderful awards event to really recognize the outstanding work that you guys are doing around the country advancing the cause of this transition to digital curriculum and content. Without any further ado, let's give a warm welcome to our CEO and lead publisher of the Learning Council, Ms. LeiLani Cauthen. So LeiLani.
Thank you. All my favorite people. You know, it's so funny when I talk to the industry partners that the Learning Council has, I always tell them the Learning Council annual gathering is really the intellectual elite of the whole country. This is not an event where we're talking about the latest sparkly piece of something and you walk a show floor and get dazzled by the tens of thousands of options. Our focus as the Learning Council is bringing you understanding and helping you wade through what I say is right now the bottleneck of the market. We're in a very interesting couple of years here. When David talks on Friday to show you I think it's like 42 slides, all our slide deck of what happened in our national survey this year, you're gonna be blown away at not only the progress, but the tripping points happening nationally for transition to digital. It's a very fascinating thing. And I believe the top 5 intentions now are all different than they were the previous 3 years. It's really interesting. So I want to talk to you guys a little bit about context. This is one of my favorite things to do, is talk to you about where we're really going as a country and also a global economy because of the technology incursion. So I'm going to back you all the way out to a much earlier history so I can bring into frame what's happening in 2017 and what's going to happen in 2018, okay? Which is sort of a setup for what David's going to talk about when we show you those slides. So there's turning points throughout history, things that happen because of other things sort of gaining ground that flip our culture and our economy in a new direction. And that's what's happening in education, and it's why I'm talking about it. So the technologies that have come into play in the past have been things like the printing press, created a bit of a revolution, obviously, for education, oil refinement, vaccines, air flight, everything on this slide has been previous technologies that resulted in a massive shift for mankind. Every 60 years, and this is according to the work of a guy by the name of Carlos Perez, he wrote a book called The Technology Revolutions and Financial Capital, The Dynamics of Bubbles and Golden Ages. He found a very specific pattern, and I think this is a fascinating pattern, both politically and economically and culturally, to pay attention to. First, there's a birth of a new technology, like the printing press or the computer or air flight. Then there's a period of installation. Then there's a crisis point that's the turning point, then further deployment of that technology, a period of great prosperity, and then an exhaustion of that, like mankind just starts like fully deploys it, and then they're like bored with that, you gotta give them something else to do. And there's a new cycle, okay? Let me show you how that works. Installation is usually 20 to 30 years. There's rapid growth as that technology goes in. Capital investment funding goes on a frenzy, like it has been for the last 5-6 years in education, followed by a speculative frenzy and then a crash. Does anybody remember the dot-com bust? Okay. Then there's a deployment, then there's this crisis point, then there's deployment for 20 to 30 years, a golden age, and that's funded by, mostly in all the companies in the space, by production derived from profits. So the investment money goes on to new markets. And that leads, obviously, then to maturity and then exhaustion in the next shift. Right now in education, we are right after a major turning point. The whole economy is after a major turning point. Here's how that works. Let me just give you a little bit of history so you kind of see this very clear pattern. There's an Industrial Revolution in 1771, and then in 1797, there was a canal panic. I don't know much about it, but it was a big deal economically. Then after that, there was a big economic boom that lasted for almost 50 years. In 1929, there was the steam and railways explosion, and then there was the railway panic, and then after that, another boom. In 1875, there was steel, electricity, and heavy engineering, which resulted in the 1893 US Depression, and an economic collapse in many countries, and then a boom. Then you had the oil, automobile, and mass production boom, which after that was the 1929-1945 US stock market crash and the Great Depression. A lot of political extremism at that point. Like, we all remember Hitler. Then there was the 1945 to the year 2000 boom. And then what? The dot-com bust, right? So, in 1971, you had Intel's microchip, and then that dot-com bust, and then a present global financial collapse in 2008. Slow or no growth, and then rising extremism, right? So this pattern has been playing out every 60 years with mankind. So what's going to happen next? 2017 is post the crisis and the recession. So you're watching what's happening move the whole economy into a golden age. What does that mean for education in terms of deployment? It means everyone else is moving fast forward into full deployment in every other part of the economy. Healthcare, manufacturing, retail, heavy deployment. Education is moving into heavy deployment. So I think it means a new golden age, and it means we are far from done in education, far from it. Education's turning point between the hardware and moving heavy into software has been 2017. There's not a single school district I talk to anymore who's all about what device we're going to get. That's kind of over. That's like 3 years ago. So we're heavy into the software change. So let me show you what it's going to mean for analytics as you watch this. And hopefully I've just given you a little bit of context, the background as to why things are what they're doing. So you've got the human-to-machine work in the software field in the year 2000. A lot of new ground was made back then. Then remote human-to-machine, machine-to-human, and then the human back to machine, sort of a manual software process. Then machine-to-machine has been heavy in 2015. By 2020, the speculators say that we will be moving very strongly into machine-to-machine applying artificial intelligence. That is why you see Google making the moves that it is, and Facebook, and Microsoft, and everybody else with the little devices sitting in your house talking to you. They're collecting a massive amount of human intelligence to then cater back to the consumer with adapted services. So that is also called big learning. Big learning uses all its knowledge to create its own sort of intelligence. After that, well, 2018, and then into 2020, there's going to be also a shift to what we see in the rest of the industries. By 2018, according to IDC, big data, or the use of all the data that people are ingesting, will already be a $41.5 billion market. Massive growth in that industry. By 2020, there will be a new phase called ubiquitous analytics. Education is way behind this curve. That's why I'm talking about it now, because you're going to start hearing a lot about it from the industry. It's cloud-based analytics. How many people are using Google Docs or Microsoft in the cloud? They're collecting analytics like you can't believe off of all that. Then education, finance, healthcare, and everyday consumer analytics, such as the peer-to-peer renting business, even peer-to-peer lending is being piloted. If you haven't heard of Bitcoin yet, it's taking off in a lot of foreign countries, in weird places like Somalia. Then you will have something called predictive analytics, which means knowledge being used to prevent car crashes, prevent crime, and then real-time data licensing will overtake data purchase. So data licensing means that you're going to maybe possibly be thinking about making some money back for all the data you collect on students. that you can anonymize, so it's not student recognizable, but it's traffic that shows how they're learning or what they're doing in some other way that you could commercialize. That sounds like something very heathenish to say, but it's what the consumer industries are doing all the time. They anonymize data and sell it as a big packet. Education's never thought of doing that, but it's definitely a way to make a lot of money. So this is what it would look like if you were going deep into programming. This is by a world-class programmer, Swami Chaturaskan is his name, something, something. But this is a grid to show you how deep you have to go to really understand big data, big analytics, all the pieces a programmer goes through and the trails they go through. Let me break that down to you in a more simple way. So breaking down the code universe, as executives, you're gonna need to know this stuff. It's why I'm showing it to you, because you're gonna need to understand the tasks that companies are doing for you, the tasks that you're undertaking to build your own software, and all that kind of stuff. So the fundamentals start with linear and relational algebra. You learn that before you learn a code. That's what all coders need. Then you move into statistics, which is understanding percentiles and probabilities. Then real programming, which includes factor analysis and functions. Machine learning, if you're going to get into this, is bias and variance in data. Then text mining means tagging, vocabulary mapping. Visualization means timelines and decision trees, so you can understand where the intelligence of the computer is going. And then big data, which is data replication principles. How does data replicate in systems? Then data ingestion, which is partly the integration conversation. Then data munging. Never heard of data munging before I started this investigation, which is just sampling out of all your big data and component analysis. Then the last thing is toolboxing, which is what coders use to grab other pieces of code that's already been built by some other coder in some sort of shared hub and plug it in. And all the languages that they have to know, Python, .NET, all the different languages that are out there. This conversation I'm having with you right now, in 5 years you're gonna go, oh yeah, I know all that stuff now. Just like you didn't used to know how to run a smartphone and you used to know how to do all your documents and all the work that you do on a laptop, this is gonna become so basic to you. Everything I'm saying is gonna be very basic, and there's reasons for that. So adaptive courseware is what you're getting thrown at you constantly in schools right now. Not a lot of people in schools really understand what adaptive courseware is. When they think of going digital, they think of a course. You manually navigate your way to it. You manually ingest some of the data. You manually take a test. And you manually get given by some teacher who's gating it the next step for yourself. That's all very manual in terms of the software universe. So what you're really going to look at is software that does adapting to you. Some of the learning management systems are starting down this road. I know I looked at Blackboard's new system. It's doing a lot of that work. But the system is collecting data as the user uses it, analyzing that data, and shunting and adjusting the next lesson out to the student. That's what adaptive courseware is doing now. It's not doing it for every subject and every grade yet. But that's where the industry is going to go to. This changes everything. This changes the job of the teacher. It changes how they interface with the students so that they're exactly and more efficiently inserted into the chain of learning in a very useful and aesthetic way. That's why we talk about humanizing the job of teaching, because when software is doing a lot more of the heavy lifting to exactly wrap itself around and teach that individual student, you can use the humans you have to really interface, to really be there with the kid. That's a big game changer. So there's two arenas now in your field, in the education field. One arena is a lot of manual data input, and that is and the types of analytics you're going to get out of it are the number of logins, search popularity, content piece counts, course counts, how many courses you have, content usage longitudinal data, which means over time, messaging transaction counts, content linked messaging counts, linear assessment results longitudinal data, this is where they give you charts and stuff, time stamped on user interface, like when did they log in, semi-automatic dashboards, which is mostly on standards and achievements, okay? That's one universe. The other universe is the courseware universe. And that is getting data from the user interaction. It's a step up. So that step up is the machine is reading the interactions it's getting and interacting back. Now we're moving into real business intelligence or intelligent learning engine type work. This is what people call AI. It's not quite AI yet, but it has all the same stuff as manual world. Then you're moving into the animated content display timing. Little Johnny isn't getting his math lesson quite correctly. The machine is watching how long it's taking him to get that, and then it's shunting him into maybe a remedial question because he obviously isn't getting what he's got here, so it's going to scale back to the earlier stuff. The machine will do that automatically. Then an auto-learning path logic is pre-built into the software. And then there is repetitive auto-questioning, which is pre-programmed. Auto-grading, auto-translations into other languages, time-stamped user interfacing, keystroke internal counting, it's watching your numbers of keystrokes. It's auto-reporting and dashboarding back to the teacher. The teacher can decide whether to get you forward or get you back, hold you in with a class structure, or let you zoom forward, like we've heard Shelby County Schools does. They get kids graduating calculus in 9th grade. Then you've got a whole setup within that data user interaction for machine learning, or what we call big learning. The machine's learning from the machine. That's where education software is going to inevitably go. Why? Because parents are already buying some of that in the open market. That's why I talk about consumerization. Parents will buy stuff that truly gets their kids to the endpoint. So when you structure where software can take a school, the reason I'm really into this topic is because I want to see schools leverage the best of their human quality and use what they can out of software. Like, subsume that into what you're using so that you can advance kids very personally forward. So, education analytics scale. Let me walk you down this. And by the way, we asked you to pick this up because this is the precursor to understanding analytics. First, you have to have people have a systems mentality. And I'm going to go over this with you in a minute. These are all the types of systems currently in play in education. But let's look at analytics first. So, at the lowest end of analytics is what they call reporting. And reporting, just as simple query and search. It's just data field manipulation. Very simple thing to do in software. Then you move up to analysis, and it uses same data comparatives in an automatic way and gives them back to you in a dashboard. And time series and trend data. When you move all the way up to analytics monitoring, you're getting dashboard visualization and auto personalization. You do have that in some learning management systems where they're automatically giving the kid the next lesson. If you've been in Khan Academy and started a series, Khan will automatically send you an email about your next course if you finished one. That's what I'm talking about in auto personalization. Then you get all the way up to diagnostic. Diagnostic is using longitudinal data and different types of data comparatives. It's starting to think a little bit, but not too deeply. Then you get all the way up into predictive analytics, which is asking the question, what's likely to happen? And when you get into that, you're into probabilities. Remember what I just said about what kind of math and things you're going to have to know as a coder? When you talk to companies that do this, they're going to bring up these words in front of you. You're going to be like, what? So that's why I'm showing you this. Predictive and probabilities, there are some companies already in this space. I think HMH is also in this space. Is HMH in the house? You guys are in the room? Yeah, so you've got some stuff in this space too. And the last question, and the highest level question, is what do I do? That's prescriptive analytics, and it's doing intelligence. It's doing some thinking. And it's making recommendations based on associated topics, and even tangential topics. For example, if complete with calculus, shunting you to ancient Egypt, history and culture, because that was the originating culture of math. Like, let's just shunt you into a different topic. That doesn't happen right now, but it's a natural if you're going to use the kid's time wisely, right? Like, here's a kid who's really interested in this topic. What else can we put in around that? That's what a good teacher does now. But you can actually build software to do that almost automatically. So your intro to what you're going to see coming out of all this software in terms of visualization is time series visualizations, bubble charts, bar and line charts, 3D bar graphs, Gantt charts, radar charts. All these things are going to become common terminology to you. And you'll be asking each other in the staff meetings, is that a histogram or is that a line chart, right? Stuff like that. You can really dazzle people with this terminology. So you're also going to see 3D visualizations. This is also common in software, where they're showing you the data, like the stack of all the students and what standards they're all covering. The visualizations of student data, this is from Dreambox Incorporated, is already built into a lot of the courseware. It's manual in a lot of the learning management systems. You have to build your own graphics in there. But it's automatic in the courseware, the adaptive curriculum. And this is visualizations of students against standards. You're going to see that on a lot of courseware too. So the Manual to Digital School Leadership discussion is a discussion between the manual way that people lead right now in schools, all the way to sort of an expert using systems and analytics. By the way, we can send you guys all these slides. After the event, we usually send out an email with everybody's slide deck. But at the manual level, you're talking about human management expertise. And most of the companies that I see in this field that are purveying professional development for superintendent ranks really go and talk to people about how you be human, right? It's great. It's sort of, how you run a manufacturing line of teachers and students going through courses. It's not teaching leaders to think like systems experts. It's a completely missing arena. Then you've got them worried about data quality and access issues if they have learning management systems at all. They're doing reporting and analysis at the lowest level. They've got what's called a lot of data, spread marts, they call, a lot of spreadsheets running around the organization. Spread marts can kind of wreck an organization because you got this spreadsheet over there, different columns with this one over there, and that's the level that's going on in that manual world. And the senior executives are very distanced from that data manipulation. They hire people to do that. People will do that for me, right? They're very distanced. But as they mature in understanding what's happening with software and technology, they get into this reporting level, which is they're very requirements focused through staff. It means, in other words, they have at least identified what data they do need. We've already had superintendents in several cities as we tour the country that have said to us, we're selectively retiring some of our data ingestion. Like they don't need it anymore. State might still be asking for it, but if they don't really use it and don't need it, they're doing selective retirement, which I found a fascinating comment. Then they're looking at their operational applications. They're looking at their finance apps and some of their student apps, that kind of thing. But they also tend to operate with good enough data. It's good enough. It's not perfect, it's good enough. It maybe is class-specific data, but not personalized data. It's not looking at that individual student. Then they're doing monitoring, a little bit of diagnostics, and they're supervising what happens with data. They haven't really moved to the next level, which is actively managing using data. So when you become a practitioner, you're professionally leading applied data. Dr. Dance, you were doing this in Baltimore with the BCPS, actively leading. So that's when you're actually into heavy operational use of diagnostic and predictive analytics. Like you want to know where the ship is sailing. And then you're also doing personalized learning. At the very top end of the analytics scale is becoming an expert and mandating an analytics culture. Data drives the culture. This has already happened in retail, healthcare, every other sector of the market, including banking. Education is the last market to not really use analytics the way that software could deliver them to. And I'm not talking about you guys as individual, because some of you in the room are doing some fantastic things. I'm talking about the market overall. But being focused on prediction and prescription is where that will go. And then those leaders are going to lead with data in order to manage the human interactions to 100% personalized. So this is the scale of school leadership. So let me just bring up what's kind of missing right now. If you open your special reports to this midsection, the software in the field right now is a huge number of systems and framework systems. I call them collectively campus management systems, so does the higher ed arena. But you have this analytics layer that'll layer over that. Analytics is also layered inside those systems and inside courseware. And you have these two sides where this is all framework systems stuff and tack-ons. It's things that the district and the schools tend to do, and then they go to every teacher and they're like, please put all your data in. It's the manual data entry I was talking about. Put all your data in there, use it, blah, blah, we need it. And then there's the learning level. The learning level is where all the flash and sparkle is, all the nifty groovy stuff, right? You're looking at all your different applets. The average teacher has, 10 to 50 apps, right? Either on the mobile phone or their iPad or their device or whatever. These are single function things, applets are. They're not applications where it's got a multiple level of functions. Then you've got all your collections and your content stuff, your communications apps, loose pieces of raw content that gets sucked into systems from somewhere on the internet, courseware, etc. Anyway, you have a lot of sophistication in the teaching and learning classware level. A lot of schools are letting whatever the teacher wants, let them do it, versus leading. The problem with that is the let universe, do whatever you want, applets confused with pieces of raw content, confused with other applications and systems, blah, blah, blah. You don't get the analytics that you need to truly personalize because you're teacher-centric rather than institutional-centric. This is the shift that will happen over the next 3 years. And it will happen because consumer demand for real personalization is very high because parents are buying more software than schools are. So what's missing right now in the analytics field is leadership. It's uncomfortable. But until we actually get to the position where we're saying we're doing this because we really want to personalize, that gets the agreement of all the teachers. We really want to personalize for every child. For real, different paths and everything. We need to put the data in the systems. We need to interact with the systems. When we do that, we can get to the nirvana of real personalization because we will have the data to do it. So leadership is going to be the biggest task in the next couple of years for every school in America, away from the way that they've been being led in the past. It's going to take a while. But that's why I'm talking about it right now, because the whole country is headed into this. Can you see yourself doing it? Are you in? Say yes. Good. Okay, good. All right, thanks for having me, guys. And we'll bring up our next speaker.